The black void of space stretched endlessly, cold and silent. The small alien vessel, the Zephyr, floated aimlessly, its lights flickering like dying stars. Captain Rilnor sat alone in the command chair, staring at the blinking consoles, his heart heavy. Every system of the ship had failed one by one. Engines were silent. Life support barely worked. The crew, huddled in the corners, looked pale and weak. Fear was everywhere, yet no one dared speak. Rilnor's claws trembled as he reached for the emergency console. 4 cycles ago, they had encountered a severe cosmic storm that damaged their navigation. Now drifting further from known space, hope seemed almost impossible. "Captain," whispered Lieutenant Varu, her voice shaking, "we won't survive long like this. The temperature is dropping and the oxygen will run out soon." Rilnor swallowed hard. He knew she was right. Every alien species feared being lost in deep space. It was a slow, lonely death, filled with cold, hunger, and silence. He felt a pang of guilt. He had been responsible for leading them into this storm. Now it seemed as if the galaxy itself had turned its back on them. Then, a thought flickered in his mind. The emergency pulse beacon. It was an ancient system, rarely used and considered a last resort. Activating it would broadcast their position openly. Anyone in range, friend or foe, would know where they were. "But doing nothing would be worse. We have no choice," Rilnor said firmly. "Send the beacon." Varu nodded and moved quickly to activate the device. A sharp hum filled the bridge, cutting through the silence like a cry for help. The beacon pulsed outward into the endless darkness, screaming their existence to the galaxy. The crew watched in silence, hope and fear battling in their hearts. Minutes turned into hours, or perhaps days. Time had lost all meaning. The ship groaned and shuddered. Weak lights flickered across the walls. Crew members lay in their bunks, too exhausted to speak, too afraid to sleep. Then a ripple through the communications net made Rilnor's heart skip. Static at first, then a deep, calm voice. "Unidentified vessel. We received your distress signal. Hold your position. Help is on the way." Rilnor froze. Human. The voice was steady, confident, and surprisingly soothing. He had heard stories of humans before. Small, fragile creatures, yet reckless, daring, and stubborn. Now one was coming for them. Through the main viewport, a massive silhouette appeared, cutting through the darkness. It was a human ship, a dreadnought as their legends called it, huge and imposing yet moving with purpose. Its lights shimmered like a promise. Rilnor could feel it before he saw it. Strength, determination, and a strange warmth he had never felt in space. "Can they save us?" Rilnor whispered, almost afraid of the answer. "They will," Varu said softly, her eyes wet. "Humans, they always do." Hope, fragile and delicate, began to grow in the hearts of the crew. For the first time since the storm, fear didn't dominate the bridge. The endless void seemed smaller, less threatening. Somewhere beyond the stars, engines hummed, a lifeline, powerful and unstoppable. Rilnor watched as the human ship drew closer. The Zephyr drifted, fragile and small, yet alive. He thought of his crew and their families, of the countless worlds they had yet to see, and in that moment he understood something. Humans were different. They did not see limits the way others did. They fought, they saved, and they arrived even when all hope seemed lost. The beacon pulsed again, a tiny heartbeat against the vastness of space. And in the distance, the human ship moved closer, carrying with it the promise of life, of rescue, and of a story that would be remembered for generations. Rilnor's claws tightened around the console. "Hold on, everyone," he said, voice trembling but full of determination. "We're not alone. They're coming." And somewhere in the infinite darkness, hope began to shine. The distant hum of the human ship grew louder, a steady rhythm that cut through the silence of the void. On the Zephyr, the crew gathered at the main viewport, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and disbelief. The humans were coming, moving with precision, confidence, and an unshakable purpose. Every pulse of light from the dreadnought seemed to reassure them, whispering, "You are not alone." Rilnor paced the bridge, claws tapping nervously against the cold metal floor. "Stay calm," he muttered, though his own voice betrayed the tension inside. "Keep monitoring the hull integrity and oxygen levels. We cannot afford mistakes now." Varu hovered by the communication console, fingers brushing the controls. She tried to speak, but words failed her. She only stared as the human vessel grew larger, its massive silhouette reflecting off the viewport like a shield against the infinite darkness. The humans were legends for a reason, Rilner thought. Small, fragile, underestimated, but unstoppable when they chose to act. A sudden jolt shook the ship, throwing a few crew members off balance. Rilnor's heart leapt into his throat. The cosmic storm that had disabled the Zephyr was still active nearby, sending waves of gravitational turbulence. The ship creaked, metal groaning under the strain. "Damage to the starboard hull is increasing," shouted the engineering officer. Sparks flew along the bulkhead. "We won't hold much longer at this rate." Rilnor's claws tightened around the console. "Keep steady. Humans are almost here. We just need to hold on a little longer." Outside, the human dreadnought moved with astonishing speed, navigating the dangerous currents of the storm without hesitation. Its massive engines flared, pushing through the debris field with surgical precision. The Zephyr crew could hardly believe the skill of the pilots. Every movement seemed effortless yet powerful, like watching a predator glide through the ocean with complete control. A sudden alert blared. A smaller unknown ship had appeared near the Zephyr. Alien pirates or scavengers drawn to the beacon's signal. Rilnor's stomach sank. "The crew had hoped for rescue, not an ambush. They've found us," cried Varoo, panic creeping into her voice. "We can't fight them. Our weapons are offline." Rilnor took a deep breath, forcing calm into his voice. "Then we wait. For the humans." The alien ship closed in, weapons charging, eyes glowing like molten metal. The crew of the Zephyr held their breath. This could be the end. Then a burst of light tore through space. The human dreadnought fired a precise salvo of energy beams. The attacking vessel shuddered under the attack, shields failing, engines sparking. In mere moments it was disabled, drifting helplessly in the storm. The crew of the Zephyr gasped. The humans had arrived, and not just to save them, but to protect them. Awe and relief swept through the bridge. Rilnor felt a lump in his throat. He had heard of human bravery before, but seeing it with his own eyes was beyond comprehension. "Prepare for boarding." A calm, deep human voice came through the communication link. "We are sending a team. Remain inside. Do not attempt repairs until we arrive." Rilner nodded, though he could barely contain his excitement. "Understood. Thank you, humans. Thank you." The Zephyr rocked as the human team approached. Small airlocks extended, docking smoothly with the alien vessel. A series of hatches opened and light flooded the bridge. For the first time in countless cycles, the crew felt the warmth of hope. Varoo blinked, tears rolling down her cheeks. "They came. They actually came." Rilnor's claws shook as he gripped the console. "Yes, and we are going home." Outside, the storm raged, but the human dreadnought stood like a shield, unyielding. To the aliens aboard the Zephyr, it seemed less like a ship and more like a guardian, a living promise that even in the darkest corners of space, there were beings who would risk everything to save lives. The crew looked at one another, a fragile smile forming on each face. For the first time since the storm began, they dared to hope. The humans were here, and nothing, not distance, not danger, not death itself, could stop them. The Zephyr was battered, broken, and weak. But it was not lost, not yet. The arrival of the humans had turned fear into courage, despair into determination. And somewhere deep in the cold expanse of space, hope had taken root. The docking clamps of the human ship hissed and locked into place, vibrating slightly as the massive vessels settled together. On the Zephyr, the alien crew could hardly believe what they were seeing. The humans moved with precision, calmness, and confidence that seemed almost impossible. Rilnor's claws tightened on the console. Every movement of the humans was purposeful, every step measured and yet filled with a warmth that reassured them they were in safe hands. A human officer appeared on the communication screen. His eyes were steady, voice calm but filled with authority. "We will evacuate your crew in phases. Remain where you are. Do not attempt to move the ship." "We will handle it," Varoo exhaled, tears threatening to spill. They're really here for us." "They're going to save us," she whispered. Her voice quivered with a mix of fear, relief, and awe. Rilnor nodded. "Yes, and they will not fail. Humans don't give up." The words felt strange to him, almost like a legend coming to life. Every species had stories of human stubbornness, their ability to survive impossible odds. And now the Zephyr crew was witnessing it firsthand. The humans deployed small, agile craft from the dreadnought. They moved quickly, Attaching stabilizers and repair modules to the Zephyrs' damaged hull, sparks flew as they welded sections back together, while simultaneously opening the airlocks to begin evacuating crew members. It was a synchronized dance, one that seemed impossible in the chaos of space, yet the humans performed it flawlessly. "Captain," said Varu, her voice trembling. They're coming inside. Do we let them?" Rilnor hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, trust them. If anyone can save us, it is them." Moments later, humans in protective suits entered the Zephyr, moving swiftly through corridors and bridges. They carried tools, medical supplies, and an aura of authority that immediately calmed the terrified crew. Rilnor felt a mixture of admiration and disbelief. These humans, fragile in body but mighty in spirit, were saving lives with courage and precision. One human knelt beside a weakened crew member, scanning with a small device. "Vitals are low but stable. Administering oxygen and stabilization now," the human said, voice steady. Within moments, the crew member's breathing eased, color returning to his face. The alien crew watched, stunned, as the humans worked quickly and effectively. Rilnor followed them closely, observing every detail. These humans did not panic, did not hesitate, and did not judge. They simply acted. It was a lesson in courage and determination, one that made Rilnor feel both small and inspired. Outside, the storm continued to rage. Meteors and cosmic debris threatened the Zephyr, but the humans worked as if the universe itself would bend to their will. The alien crew realized something remarkable. The humans were not just rescuers, they were unstoppable guardians. Even the universe, in its vast indifference, could not deny them. Hours passed, though time seemed meaningless. Crew members were stabilized, transported in groups, and carefully guided toward the human dreadnought. Every rescued alien felt a mixture of relief, gratitude, and disbelief. Tears streamed freely, smiles returned, and hope, once fragile, grew strong and unshakable. Finally, Rilnor stood on the bridge, watching as the last of his crew were safely aboard the human ship. The humans signaled that the Zephyr would be towed to a nearby safe station for repairs. The alien vessel had been battered, broken, and near death. But the humans had given it and its crew a second chance. Rilnor looked out into the endless darkness, seeing the human dreadnought silhouetted against the cosmic storm. It was not just a ship. It was a symbol. Strength, determination, hope, and above all, humanity. Varu placed a hand on Rilnor's shoulder, eyes shining. They really are different. I don't know how they do it, but we owe them our lives," Rilnor nodded solemnly. "Yes, and not just our lives. They have reminded us that courage and hope exist even in the darkest places. Humans, they are something the galaxy cannot ignore." As the Zephyr was secured for towing, and the human dreadnought prepared to lead them to safety, Rilnor felt a quiet, powerful emotion swell within him. Gratitude, awe, and something more, belief. Belief in humanity and in the impossible. For the first time since the storm began, the alien crew knew they would survive. And they would carry the story of these humans, their bravery, their strength, and their relentless spirit, into the far reaches of the galaxy. The human dreadnought glided through the darkness, carrying the rescued crew of the Zephyr toward the nearest safe station. Outside, the storm still raged, cosmic winds twisting meteors and debris into deadly spirals. But inside the human ship, warmth, light, and calm filled every corridor. The alien crew could feel the difference immediately. Every corner reflected purpose and care. Rilnor walked slowly through the corridors, observing humans and aliens alike. Crew members were seated in med bays recovering from the ordeal, while human engineers worked quietly, checking systems and reinforcing shields. The ship hummed with quiet power, each sound a reminder that they were alive because of these humans. Varu joined him, her voice soft. "They make it look so easy, even in the storm, even with danger all around. They never panic," Rilnor nodded. "That is humanity. Others might despair. Others might give up. Humans, they push forward. Always." The aliens had little time to admire their surroundings. Sensors aboard the dreadnought began to flash. A cluster of meteorites larger than before was hurtling toward them. Even with the ship's advanced systems, the collision could be catastrophic. "Captain," a human officer called out, calm yet urgent, Brace for evasive maneuvers. All systems maximum output. The dreadnought twisted, engines roaring as energy shields flared against the incoming rocks. The crew of the Zephyr clung to their seats, hearts pounding, as pieces of debris rattled against the reinforced hull. Every movement was precise, every decision calculated. The humans remained unshaken, moving with confidence that seemed almost impossible. Rilnor couldn't help but marvel. Even in the face of death, they do not hesitate. They do not falter. Varu's eyes glimmered with admiration. They're teaching us something. Courage. Hope. Even now, in this storm, they show us the way. Hours passed, the storm battering the dreadnought with relentless force. Yet the humans' leadership and skill kept them safe. Every alien aboard the ship began to feel it. Something more than relief. Something stronger. Gratitude, yes, but also inspiration. The humans were not just saving lives. They were showing a way to survive the impossible. In the mess hall, some crew members shared stories of their homeworlds with the human officers. Laughter and smiles began to return, replacing the fear that had filled their hearts for so long. Rilnor watched quietly, feeling a strange warmth. It was a feeling he hadn't known in cycles: trust. Complete, unshakable trust. Yet even with hope growing, the dangers of the storm were far from over. A massive gravitational anomaly appeared on the sensors, pulling debris in unpredictable ways. The humans quickly adjusted course, their knowledge of physics, strategy, and timing, saving everyone aboard from disaster. "Stay close," one of the human officers said to the alien crew. "We will get you to safety. Do not worry. We've faced worse and we survive." "You will too." Rilnor felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. In his long life he had seen many things: war, famine, storms that could crush worlds. But he had never witnessed courage like this. The humans were small by size but immense in spirit. They carried not just technology or weapons but something far more powerful: determination, will, and an unshakable refusal to fail. Varu rested her hand on his arm. "We were lost, but now we are found. Not just rescued, but inspired." Rilnor smiled faintly, a sense of awe settling deep in his chest. Yes, the galaxy should remember them. Every species should know what humans are capable of. They are unstoppable. As the dreadnought cut through the final waves of the storm, approaching the calmer regions of space, a quiet peace settled over the ship. The crew of the Zephyr looked out the windows, seeing the first distant stars without obstruction. They were still alive. They were safe. And they were no longer alone. For the first time since the storm had claimed their vessel, Rilnor allowed himself to relax. Humanity had carried them through death itself and had shown them that courage, hope, and unity could survive even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. The journey was not over, but the most dangerous part had passed. And in the hearts of the alien crew, a new belief took root: belief in humans, belief in hope, and belief in the impossible. The human dreadnought cut through calmer space, but the alien crew of the Zephyr knew danger was never far behind. Even after surviving the storm, cosmic space held unpredictable threats: gravitational anomalies, rogue asteroids, and worse. Rilnor stood on the observation deck watching the stars, feeling both awe and apprehension. His crew had survived so far, but the journey was not over. Suddenly, alarms blared. Sensors detected a massive rogue vessel hurtling toward them. An enormous asteroid-like ship, jagged and menacing, obviously hostile. Its weapons glowed and the humans' shields flared in response. The crew of the Zephyr froze, hearts pounding. "They're not going to let us pass easily," Varu whispered, her voice trembling. Rilnor gritted his claws. "We cannot fight it. Not with our systems offline. We must trust the humans." The human officers moved quickly, calm in the face of impending danger. "All crew, brace yourselves," the lead officer instructed. "We will navigate through. Follow our guidance. Stay close and stay calm." The rogue vessel fired. Bright beams of energy struck the human shields, causing the entire ship to shudder. The Zephyr rocked violently and Rilnor felt fear gnawing at his chest. But the humans did not panic. Their engines roared as they maneuvered with precision, twisting and dodging, turning the seemingly impossible into a calculated path of survival. Varu's eyes widened. They're going to get us through it." Rilnor nodded, feeling a mix of admiration and disbelief. These humans, so small yet so powerful in spirit, were more than their technology. They were courage, determination, and resilience made flesh. The rogue ship fired again, this time closer. Sparks flew across the Zypher's hull and a warning light flashed. Panic began to rise among the alien crew, but one of the human officers' voices rang out. Calm, steady, commanding. Do not fear. We will get you through. Trust us. The humans coordinated their actions perfectly. Shield harmonics adjusted to absorb energy blasts. Evasive maneuvers diverted debris. Simultaneously, a series of countermeasures launched toward the rogue vessel, disabling its engines and weapons without harming the Ziffor. Rilnor could hardly breathe. He had never seen skill like this. Each move was deliberate, flawless, and infused with an unshakable confidence. It was not just survival, it was artistry. Courage painted against the canvas of danger. Minutes passed like hours. The rogue vessel, disabled and drifting, was no longer a threat. The human dreadnought emerged victorious, shields intact, engines humming steadily. The alien crew erupted in relief, tears and cheers mingling in the observation deck. Varu looked at Rilnor, her voice trembling with gratitude. They risked everything. For us. We wouldn't be alive without them. Rilnor's claws rested on the console, knuckles white. Yes, and not just alive. We are inspired. We have seen what determination, courage, and humanity truly mean. The humans secured the Zypher, preparing it for the final leg of the journey to a nearby safe station. Systems were stabilized, repairs underway, and life support fully restored. For the first time, the alien crew could breathe without fear, could move without trembling, could hope without reservation. Rilnor stepped to the viewport and watched the stars stretch past, the storm behind them now a distant memory. Humanity had not just saved them, they had shown them the impossible was possible. They had turned fear into courage, despair into hope. Varu joined him, resting a hand on his arm. They are different. The galaxy may underestimate them, but we will never forget. Not now, not ever. Rilnor nodded solemnly. We will tell our worlds. Every species should know the humans. They are unstoppable, unyielding, and they fight for life. Even when the odds are impossible, the Zypher, once lost and drifting in the dark void, now sailed alongside the human dreadnought, safe and whole. The crew felt a quiet pride not in themselves, but in the humans who had risked everything to save them. And somewhere deep in the infinite darkness of space, the alien crew realized that legends of humanity were true, not because of their strength alone, but because of their courage, their will, and their refusal to ever abandon hope. For Rilnor, Varu, and the others, the humans were not just saviors, they were a lesson, a promise and a story they would carry forever. The galaxy had underestimated humans once, but now the crew of the Zypher knew the truth. Humanity could face any darkness, survive any storm, and emerge victorious. The human dreadnought glided steadily through calm space, carrying the Zypher and its crew toward the nearest safe station. For the first time in countless cycles, the alien crew felt peace, though their hearts were still heavy with the memory of what they had endured. Rilnor walked through the corridors, watching humans and aliens working side by side. It was a strange, humbling sight, two very different species united by purpose and trust. Varu approached him quietly, her eyes wide with wonder. Captain, I can't believe it. They faced storms, rogue vessels, and chaos, and never once faltered. How can they be like this? Rilnor shook his head, awe in his gaze. They do not see limits the way we do. For humans, fear is not a reason to stop. Danger is not a reason to hide. They act, they fight, and they save lives, even when the odds seem impossible. In the med bay, injured crew members were being treated with care and efficiency. Humans moved calmly, speaking softly, reassuring the frightened aliens. Each touch, each word carried kindness and understanding that the Zypher crew had rarely encountered. It was not only skill that impressed them, it was empathy, courage, and patience, all in perfect balance. Rilnor stood by a viewport, watching stars drift past. Memories of the storm and the rogue vessel flashed through his mind. He could still feel the panic, the fear, the cold void pressing against his soul, yet those memories were no longer paralyzing. They had been replaced by something stronger, gratitude, awe, and an unshakable belief in the humans. Varu joined him again, her voice soft but firm. They saved us, and not just our lives. They showed us hope, They reminded us that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, courage exists. Determination exists. Life is worth fighting for. Rilnor nodded. Yes, humans are extraordinary. Not because of their weapons, not because of their ships, but because of their spirit. They do not abandon anyone. They do not give up. That is something every species should remember. The crew began to speak quietly among themselves, sharing stories and observations. They think faster than anyone I've seen, one said. They plan, they improvise, and they care. Even for us strangers, they risked everything. They are more than legends, another added. They are hope itself, walking through the stars. Rilnor listened, heart swelling with pride, not his own, but for the humans who had become saviors, teachers, and examples. He realized that their journey had been more than a rescue. It was a lesson. Humanity, he thought, was a force the galaxy could not ignore. Courage, determination, and compassion could change everything, even when the universe seemed indifferent. As the human dreadnought guided them toward the station, Rilnor allowed himself to feel something he hadn't in cycles. Trust. Complete trust, not only in the humans, but in life itself. He understood in that moment why the stories of humanity had spread across the stars. They were not exaggerated tales. They were the truth written in action, courage, and selflessness. Baru placed a hand on his shoulder. We were lost, but now we are found. Not just alive, but changed. We will never see the galaxy the same way again. Rilnor's gaze softened, a quiet smile forming. No. Humanity has shown us that even when everything seems lost, even when hope feels distant, courage can shine brighter than any star. They are small yet powerful, fragile yet unstoppable. The Zephyr crew gathered in the observation deck, watching the distant station grow larger, a safe haven awaiting them. The human crew moved among them, calm, attentive, and steady, embodying the lesson they had come to teach, that bravery, compassion, and determination were the greatest forces in the universe. Rilnor closed his eyes for a moment, letting the weight of the experience settle. Their journey had been terrifying, but humanity had turned fear into hope, danger into inspiration, loss into life. And in that moment, the crew of the Zephyr knew the truth. Humans were more than saviors. They were a reminder that even in the vast, cold emptiness of space, there was light. There was courage. There was life worth protecting. Rilnor opened his eyes, watching the station ahead. Prepare for docking, he said, voice steady, filled with awe. We are about to witness the full strength of human determination, and we will never forget it. The Zephyr shuddered gently as it docked at the sprawling space station. The crew, exhausted, battered, yet alive, gazed out of the observation windows at the vast human structure. It was massive, orderly, and humming with quiet life, a stark contrast to the chaos and darkness of the storm they had survived. The alien crew could hardly believe it. They were safe, whole, and finally free from the grip of the void. Rilnor's claws rested on the railing, his mind racing with the events that had brought them here. The storm, the rogue vessels, the unrelenting darkness of space, and the humans. He could feel a deep, unshakable gratitude rising within him. Without the human dreadnought, without their courage and skill, he and his crew would have been lost forever. Varu stood beside him, her eyes bright with awe. Captain, they didn't just save us. They changed us. They've shown us what it means to never give up, no matter how impossible the situation seems. Rilnor nodded, voice quiet but firm. Yes, Varu, humanity is different. They are small, fragile in body, yet unbreakable in spirit. They fight for life, for hope, for others, even when the odds are stacked against them. They are a force the galaxy cannot ignore. As the crew disembarked, humans guided them through the station, checking vital signs, offering food, warmth, and reassurance. Each touch, each word was deliberate, gentle, and caring. The aliens, once fearful and broken, now moved with a new energy. Every step reminded them of the humans who had risked everything to save strangers in the cold emptiness of space. Rilnor lingered in the observation deck a moment longer, looking out at the stars. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and often cruel, but now he understood something essential. Strength was not always about weapons or technology. True strength came from courage, from the will to act, to save, and to protect even when it seemed impossible. A young crew member approached, eyes wide. Captain, Will the humans do this for everyone? All species? Rilnor smiled faintly. I believe so. They are not driven by fear or selfishness. They act because life matters, because hope matters, and because they are human. Faru leaned closer. We have to tell the galaxy. Tell everyone about what we've seen. They must know humans are unstoppable, not just in battle, but in spirit. Rilnor nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. Yes, we will carry this story to every corner of the stars. Let the universe remember, when humans appear, even the darkest void trembles. They fight, they survive, they save, and they inspire. The alien crew slowly gathered on the station's observation platform. The human dreadnought, now safely docked nearby, stood as a monument to courage and determination. Some of the Zephyr crew pressed their hands against the viewport, as if trying to memorize every detail, the sheer size, the engines, the calm authority of the ship that had carried them through death itself. Rilnor turned to his crew, voice filled with emotion. We were lost, alone, facing the void with no hope. And yet humanity found us. They risked everything for lives they barely knew. They have shown us the impossible is possible. Remember this. Carry this story. Humanity is more than a species. They are a legend in the making. Faru's eyes glistened. I never believed tales could match reality. But they do this. This is beyond anything.